Um, Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maria Ustinova. I would like to introduce you my colleague, Mariana Haldlaub Miranda. We are both representing here a small research group from Technical University of Darmstadt from Germany. And today we would like, in this research group, we're dealing basically with health promoting design in architecture and urban settings. And today we would like to present you a tool which is supposed to help us to evaluate school environments together with the children. We'll present the tool and speak about some findings, and we will be happy to discuss this with you. And we built on our methodology on the old work of the architect Kevin Lynch, which they did a big research in 70s in 3 countries when he was trying to understand how the children in rapidly urbanized environments perceive the cities and perceive their environment along themselves. And he was always pointing out that it's important not to neglect the values, the opinions of the children. And when we speak about the school environment, I think it's very important because the children are the prime users of this space. And when you work with children, I think the best way to actually involve them in the research activity, it's a game, it's a play, it's the way how we actually learn in the best way. And we select the game for our method, the game that probably you, when you were a child, played many times, the I Spy with My Little Eye. So it's a guessing game. I think about one object and you have to guess what the object is, and that's why using this game, we can actually analyze environment and analyze things around us. The idea was that this tool could be a helpful instrument for the architects, planners, and actually school principals, which can help to analyze the environment and bring certain kind of changes to the environment. And it consists of the mobile application and certain guidelines, which we were supposing kind of give to the school, and school has to use it. And the idea is that you work with the kids. You have to kind of explain the rules of the game to the selected group of children. Each child receives the mobile phone where this application is installed, and they can register themselves, but what is important is anonymous collection of the data, so they can just put the nickname there. And then they can go freely to the either indoor or outdoor environment of the school and kind of look through the spaces and select a particular places and then make a picture. And in the application, they can actually select the type of this particular space, give a certain characteristic to the space. And when they make the photo, they can use a specific sticker and actually describe a particular characteristic of this space, certain items which they see on this picture. And then later on, we kind of map all these results, and we kind of we aim to organize a workshop where we actually discuss and reflect together with the children what they perceive good in the school design or what they perceive as kind of not really good for them. And just give you a little bit background why this school design is so important, particularly important for the region where we are from. Darmstadt, a little scientific city, is actually a part of huge agglomeration. It's not that far away, it's 12 miles from Frankfurt am Main, and it's kind of has a certain impact from this big city. It's the Frankfurt is an industrial financial center. In Darmstadt you have universities and scientific centers, so it actually accumulates more and more people, and there are more and more young professionals coming there. They're coming with their families, and obviously the city needs more housing, more social infrastructure, and specifically schools. On the other hand, if you're an architect, you have a certain kind of a barrier because you cannot easily expand the city. In our case, the Darmstadt is surrounded by green belts, so you have protected areas. And what is important for you as a planner is actually to give a certain multi-functionality to the places which you design in order to use them efficiently. And when we speak about the schools, there is also a huge stock of the buildings which exist all over the country, which were built mainly like in 70s and 80s. And we see that the way that children are educated at school is kind of changing. We see a lot of digital gadgets coming into the education process. And in the 70s, for example, a lot of schools were built outside the cities. And in our case, we kind of have to stay still within inner city. But what is most important, we see the emergence of so-called full-time model schools, which are kind of developing across the country. Now 40% of the school now are using this model, and in the decade it should be almost like 80% of the school. So it means that the child stay almost the full day in the school, and it means it's not only learning, it's actually having recess there, having physical activities there. It changes the way the children communicate with each other, the teacher communicates with the children, and so on and so on. And we also see that although the children are kind of generally healthy, but they're spending more time with different gadgets in front of computers, they're doing their homework using different gadgets, and they actually spending their time sitting. And as the research group from the States was doing research, and there are a lot of findings, studies that say that they actually physically active kids learn better. That's the physical activity stimulates the learning processes and probably kind of impacts the future academic achievements. We're kind of interested how we can analyze environment and create the places which can stimulate the physical activity of the children. And now I will just give back the word to Mariana, who will speak more about the research we've just done.
Okay, thank you. So as architects, we are going to base our research, of course, on what medical and neurobiologists are saying, and we are going to concentrate on what design is and how the children perceive design. So once again, this is Darmstadt. I'll go quickly through it, and our school is down there near the city center. It's in between a block. So it's about 300 feet by 300 feet, and all the things that you see surrounding are residents. And the children can only access the school from both sides. The H building is the main building, then on the south you have the gym, and on the right you have a container that was added about 2 years ago because of the lack of space. So there's where the daycare center is, and in between buildings you have a little soccer field because that's all the space they have. So it's a primary school from 1st to 4th grade, about 160 children and 18 different nationalities. So this played a role when actually designing the intervention that we wanted to have. We have to have something that children of all ages or small ages can understand, and from different cultural backgrounds. So we gave them their cell phones, and they went out either in groups or alone and eagerly documented for us the different spaces, either their favorite places or places they disliked, places where they like to study or learn, where they like to relax, and places that are suitable for physical activity. And as Maria said before, after taking the picture, they could describe this with a set of stickers. So this is based on previous work where we had semantic differentiation done with a scale, but you can't do that with children, so this was very easily, either it's dark or bright. It has a lot of vegetation or few vegetation or few, and one behavioral variable would be, is it stressful or is it relaxing to be in here? So from that we gathered the spatial information in the school, what is happening. You can see that certain type of categories merge into another. Maybe where I like to relax is also my favorite place, or it's a place where I can actually be very active. And then you'll have other spots that are concentrated, like indoor classrooms, where I can really learn well, or in the courtyard. You have different niches or corners for different things, and we go on and do maps about what it means for each area that the children said. It's spacious, or I can relax, or so on and so forth. These are just some examples. How the different categories are spread around the school. We have, of course, all outliers. We have things that are very obvious. The gym is good for moving. Then we have little curious pupils telling us, well, the stairs, I also move in the stairs. I also like that, to be active. And then we go into the multifunctionality of those rooms or those spaces and see what they can actually bring, where we would have potential to shift them to be another thing that we need them to be, or where we have to take away the things that they don't like. So in a series of conversations after that, we asked them how the experience was. They were all very excited to be able to talk about their perspective. They said that nobody ever had asked them before. So some of the findings were, for example, the toilets are the first thing that have to be dealt with. They don't like that. Communal spaces. They want small and big communal spaces. This is something that we couldn't get just from the pictures. This is something that we had to talk to them. They also said, well, I want space where I can just be by myself and it's relaxing, or I need to change of scenery. I want to sit in different chairs. I don't just want to be up front looking at the blackboard. And on the third step, we did little workshops for them. After they had been on site, they engaged with the space, that they could tell us, what is it that you want? What is it that it's lacking in your school? And they came up with some recommendations. Of course, their children from 1st to 4th grade, very creative, talking about tree houses that are not going to happen, but about how they need to have green in the spaces they learn. They also were very pragmatic, and they had a list on the right of what I need in my classroom. So these are the bullet points that I expect you to have for me in order to learn correctly. For us, it was really interesting just to see, other than the data that we gathered, that they learned about their spaces because they were in them and interact and talked about them while in there. They learned a new vocabulary about what they knew about those spaces, or they exchanged with their peers, and they make kind of informed proposals of what they need. For us, as architects and researchers, well, then we know where to target, where the target is in taking out the potential of the school, what we could do, things that we hadn't seen, and the children specifically told us, like, there is something that can be done with that space. And we see it also as like a springboard for further analysis with more sophisticated methods as the ones that have been presented that we have no experience with, and we're looking forward to the discussion, the questions and inputs from your side. Thank you very much.
Questions for the presenters? In the back?
That was fantastic, and I really appreciate that you went and asked your users what they needed for their space. My question is about the stickers they were applying. You had stressed and relaxed. How did you determine to have just those two as opposed to having more like agitated or focused or distracted?
So we went through a selection with teachers, where they recommended us to have just maximum of 6, because first graders would maybe tend to just go and drift with that set, and the screen is too small. So we did a set of tests, how much they could see and move in a smartphone screen, and ended up with that. But in the second step, depending on what type of categories of spaces we want to look into, then the stickers have to change. So it's open to further variables.
And during the interviews which we conducted after the game, we were also asking children about another categories which we probably have missed, and we were asking them if they want to include something else. Yeah, especially color. Color was important. They actually suggested that we should include this for the future game.
Any other questions? I have a question about the cult.
There's one, I
Oh,
think.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Simple question, is it available for others to use?
They asked exactly the same thing. Well, we're trying to do that, yes. It's not available now yet, but it's going to be. It's going to happen.
Yes, go ahead. Right down here.
This is just a suggestion. Maria, you and I talked about this earlier, but excuse me, there's a body of data that's available from the 1960s, a gentleman named Blishen, who did a study where he asked children in the UK to contribute their ideas about what schools should be or could be. And then it was repeated again in 2000. But it's very interesting to look at what you've collected, and the parallels are very strong.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. We'll do
Thanks.
that.
Yeah.
I had a question about the diversity of the culture and the background of the students. They were so great, but yet you had uniform responses from where they were coming from and what their backgrounds were. That's remarkable.
Yes, we did not deal further with that. We just observed during the interaction the different groups that went out together, so they were very mixed anyways. When going out, they did not keep in certain groups. Sometimes it would be boys and girls, but that's it. They did not divide it through culture, background. Yeah.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
They were all fluent in German?
Yes,
Yes.
Oh, okay.
or at least that we could tell.
I have a question. I would like to know if you know there also German book, Architecture macht Partizipation.
Partizipation.
Yes, you know?
Von den
Yes,
Baupiloten.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because it is very, very similar
Yeah.
story.
In Germany, in general, right now, there are different architectural groups that are trying to move or
And
research in that area, and it's...
It is interesting. Is it, has it influenced your methodology, or your methodology was developed separately?
Well, we're kind of familiar also with Baupiloten work, but I think we were more referring to Kevin Lynch, because for his study he also used questionnaires and photographs, but in his case the photos were done by adults, and we kind of gave this opportunity to the children.
Thank you.
Thank you.